Recently I've been seeing a lot of posts and comments from freelancers who are not getting paid on time. And I'm not sure whether this is a conversation that's just kind of made into the public domain, or if the cost of living crisis is putting pressure on freelancers and naturally they need money now more than ever before. As a freelancer, there's a lot you can do to manage the invoice and payment process, and I'm going to talk through some of those now. First of all, a late invoice is a sign of a client who doesn't care or respect you, and it is generally an indicator that you should be thinking about moving away from this client, especially if it happens a lot. There's always grace for one or two, right? But if it's happening all the time, you need to ask yourself whether this client is worth it. My opinion is, in the early days of freelancing, you might experience more of this type of problem because you just potentially are working with like a lower quality client, and over time you'll get better clients. On better clients, there are ways to find them in the early days so that you don't get into a situation where you've done work that isn't going to be paid or is going to be paid late. Look for clients who know how to write a job description, like a lengthy job description that's detailed, they know what they want, they know what they're asking for, rather than perhaps a one-liner. It doesn't really show to me that they've invested into the project if they're just not really bothering with a fleshed out job description. As a freelancer, you set the terms on your invoice. Before you get hired, you should have agreed what the terms are. Your invoice should say the invoice terms. If they don't, that client probably has 30 days. A third way that we can protect ourselves as freelancers is not to take late invoices. If I've got a client who's paid me one late invoice, I'm probably not even going to mention it, especially if they've got like a good track record. Life has just got in the way. If they were a new client, I'd probably raise it straight away. And I would just say politely, this invoice had X days terms on it. Please can we make sure that we get paid on time? This is really important to me, thanks. After that's been sent, I would expect the payments to get better. If they didn't, like I said before, maybe it's not the good client for you, it's time to move on. Sometimes clients are going to pay you late just because life got in the way, the finance guy was sick, the invoice got misplaced, it happens. And a good way to protect yourself from getting overly frustrated when this type of thing happens is to have some savings. Put some money away to protect yourself as a business. I talk lower down my feed about like an FU fund, having money where you could just reject a customer. This is kind of true for other elements of business as well. You want to have a little security blanket. And obviously you're not going to have that in the early days, but definitely work towards a fund that is just there for protection, almost like an insurance. If you've got that, it'll be a lot easier to just manage when an invoice goes over the deadline. Once you've sent an invoice, your client has to pay you. It is their legal obligation, especially if you've got proof that you've done the work. They owe you the money and they're going to need to pay you. And I've had this before when I had to chase a client. It was way in my early days of freelancing, maybe like my third or fourth client, and they weren't paying me and I had to chase them. I actually did work. So one invoice wasn't paid. I carried on working because they had paid me well for a year and they suddenly just stopped paying me. So I just carried on thinking it's just a blip. And I think I got about 3 invoices in and I was like, okay, enough is enough now. I need you to pay me. I sent some polite emails, chasing, didn't get answered, got ghosted for a while. And then eventually he would reply like, I'll pay you next month. Obviously there were cash flow issues or something, but that wasn't my problem. I think in the end I sent a fairly strong email, and you could do the same, where you say something like, it's UK law to pay this invoice. I set the terms of ... This is now this amount of time late. When can I expect payments? Once you've sent that, you could then make a little threat, like, I really don't want to take this to small claims court, but your invoice is now XX days late. Please pay it immediately. Hopefully that was enough for me. When I threatened small claims, I just got paid. It didn't come all in one, but over like 2 months I just got everything paid, and I left it like that. I think he was hoping I was just going to stop chasing for the money. So yeah, don't be too much of a victim in this. It's really annoying when a client doesn't pay you, but you need to do what you can to control the situation to ensure that you get paid.